Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and hello to all. For 8 weeks until early of October, we have to learn to live in new norm post-COVID, which the online learning has been implemented to ensure smooth process of teaching and learning. For that, all lecturers has tried their best to ensure all material has been delivered to the students. So please give us your fully cooperation to make this process go smoothly. Thank you. Welcome student to Chapter 2 Industrial Building Allowance. A learning objective is very important to make sure each student are able to conquer what they had been learning. So these are the 4 learning objectives for this topic. Number 1, the student should know and understand the industrial building allowance from aspect, define and use of 10% rules and 75% rules. Number 2, the student should know from calculation aspect, which is included constructed building, purchased building, disposal building and compute the balancing charges or balancing allowance. Number 3, the student should know and understand the temporary disuse and notional allowance treatment. And the last one is, the student should know the other allowance including agriculture sector and forest sector. Okay class, let's go to part 2 of industrial building allowance. Hello student, in part 1, you already understand on define industrial and non-industrial building. You also have a master on how to calculate 10% rules. So in part 2, we are going to look on what is qualifying building expenditure QBE, what is 75% rules and the types of allowance. So let's start. Qualifying building expenditure QBE. It can be defined as capital expenditure incurred on the construction or purchase of a building which is used at any time after its construction or purchase. Okay, this is some example of the process until complete constructed of a building. These are some examples of qualifying building expenditure. 1. Architect fee to designing plan. Any cost related to obtaining an approval from local authority for construction of the building. Legal charges and stamp duty to entitle the building constructed. Any work on the site such costs such as piling, digging for drain and electricity cable. Any cost of construction such as labor, material and management. And the cost to demolish, clearing all site provided that the old building not an industrial building. However, there are some expenses that cannot be included as a part of qualifying building expenditure or QBE, such as any cost related to purchase or acquisition of the land. Okay, the word land is very important. So you cannot calculate any acquisition about the land as a part of QBE. Okay, so I repeat, any cost related to purchase acquisition of the land, costs such as land cost, legal charges of land, payment of stamp duty and surveyor related to the land. Next, any cost of clearing the site of any previous work or demolishing the previous structure which was an industrial building. Okay, remember that any expenses of clearing the site or demolishing the site. Okay, if the building is an industrial building, so the cost cannot be included as QBE. Last one is any payment for compensation to obtain the right to occupy or own a property. So this is an expenses that cannot be included as a part of QBE. Okay, student, let's give it a try whether you can identify which one is qualifying building expenditure or which one is not a qualifying building expenditure. So let's have a look. Number 1, pay a lawyer to purchase the land. Okay, if your answer is not QBE, you are correct because there is a word purchase the land. Okay, as I told, as the previous slide said, any expenses regarding to the land is not a part of QBE. Okay. Right, so number 2. How about number 2? Clearing all site that not an industrial building. Is it QBE or not QBE? Okay. If your answer is QBE, you are correct because the building that has been cleared is not an industrial building. Okay, so number 3, pay architect to design a plan for new building is QBE. So how about number 4? Pay salary to construction worker. Anything that related to the building constructing process is a QBE. Okay. Number 5. Pay legal charges to get a license to build a new building. Alright, so what is your answer? Okay, alright, so if your answer is QBE, you are correct again. Okay, let's see on number 6. Demolish old place that is known as industrial building. So how about this? What do you think? QBE or not QBE? Okay, so if your answer is not QBE, you are correct because the place that has been demolished is as industrial building, before known as industrial building. Okay, right. Okay, so number 7, cost of build a piling to build the building. Right, so this is a part of constructing a building, so it's a QBE. Okay, and number 8, construction of a permanent glass partition for staff restroom and canteen. So this is QBE too. Right, so did you answer all of these questions correctly? If yes, congratulations. If not, never mind, this is a new topic. Then hopefully after this you can get a more clear view of what is what can be identified as QBE, what is not. Okay. Okay, student. So you already understand what expenses can be calculated as a part of qualifying building expenditure QBE. So now let's take a look on 75% rules. Did you still remember about 10% rules in part 1? If yes, good. If not, kindly have a look back on the 10% rules calculation, okay? Alright, so now we are going to look at 75% rules. What is that? There are some other qualifying building expenditure QBE, where capital expenditure incurred on preparing, cutting, tunneling or levelling land in order to prepare a site for the installation of machinery or plant installation costs. Okay, right. So sometimes the building, sometimes they want to put a big machinery, or they want to build up plant and logistic. So they have to preparing the sites, Okay, they have to cutting site maybe, they have to tunneling land, or maybe they have to leveling the land. So these expenses, either whether it's preparing site, tunneling land, cutting site or leveling land, you must calculate on the 75% rules. So this is 75% rules all about. 75% rules is used to identify whether the cost of installation is part of QBE or not. The cost of installation is part of QBE or not. Then you have to calculate this 75% rules. So the scenario can be summarized as follows. The cost of plant of machinery. This cost this cost is already a part of QBE. Our problem is we have to identify whether this cost of installation is a part of 75% rules or not. Okay. So the formula given as above as follow. If y is more than 75% rules, then Z, the total of X and Y, will be treated as QBE. However, if Y, the cost of installation, is less or same as 75%, then we only take X as a QBE part. So let's have a look at some examples. Okay. So this is the example for 75% rules. Cantik Berhad, a cosmetic manufacturing company, has incurred capital expenditure for the installation of a new machine in the factory. Okay, the Cantik Berhad has installed a new machine. The cost of the machine is 40,000 and the cost of preparing the site for installation is 121,000. Okay. As I told you earlier, cost of machine is already a part of QBE. Our problem is this one. Okay, the cost of preparing the site for installation, whether this expenses is a part of QBE or not. Okay, so we have to calculate the QBE. So let's have a look at the answer. Okay, on the solution given. Okay, so the expenses of the machine is 40,000. The cost of preparing the site for installation is 121,000. So the total of aggregate cost is 161,000. Okay, so you have to identify whether the cost of preparing the site for installation is more or less than 75% rules. So this is how you are going to calculate. Okay, this is how you are going to calculate. The preparing side, 121,000, okay, divided by the total of aggregate cost, time it by 100%. Then you will get the answer. Okay, so the answer is 75.2%. As the formula given you as in the previous slide, it is said that if the cost is more than 75%, okay, then we are going to take all costs. All aggregate costs is a part of QBE. Okay, so the answer is 161,000 because the cost of installation is more than 75%. Okay. This is one example. So let's have a look at the other example. Okay, example number 2. Bijak Berhad A publishing company has incurred capital expenditure for the installation of a new machine in the factory. The expenditure incurred is as follows. Okay, so the cost of the machine is 50,000. Right, cost of cutting the base for installation is 60,000. Right. Okay, as we know that cost of machine is already a part of QBE. Our problem is this one. Okay, the cost of cutting the base for installation. So we have to identify whether these expenses is QBE or not. This is the solution. Cost of machine is 50,000. Cost of cutting the base for installation is 60,000. The aggregate cost is 110,000. Okay, 110,000. So this is how we are going to calculate. Cutting the base 60,000 minus by 110,000 times 100%. The answer is 54.5%. 54.5%. So the summarize said that if the cost of installation is less than 75%, then the QBE is only the cost of machine. Okay, we did not include this one. Okay, so the QBE is only the cost of machine is 50,000. Right, so this is an example of 75% rules. Okay, so we have been show you two example, which is more than 75% and the other one is less than 75%. So we are giving you 5 minutes to try answer this question. Okay, this question about sedap berhad. 5 minutes start from now. Trust yourself, student. Try it. You only have 3 minutes more. Okay, so let's have a look at the answer. Okay. So, right. So leveling the site is 95,000. You divided by 180,000, which is the aggregate cost, times 100. You will get this answer, 52.8%. So it is less than 75%. So the cost of QBE is only the cost of the machine, which is 85,000. Did you get this question right? If yes, congratulations to you. But if not, it's okay. You can try it in your exercise later. Alright, congratulations for those who try it. Good, great for you. Kudos to you. Okay, student, we already learned about what is QBE. You already learned about 75% rules. So now we are going to the third subtopic in this part, which is type of allowance. Do you know how many type of allowance? Okay, if you can still remember in your taxation 1, which is you have been learned about capital allowance, there are 3 allowance. Okay, same as IBA. Okay, there are initial allowance, IA. There is annual allowance, AA, and notional allowance, NA. Same as capital allowance. Differentiate is the rate of allowance. Okay, so what is initial allowance? Initial allowance or IA can be claimed by the company at the first year of the completed building or purchase the building. Okay, the company can only claim it once for a building. Condition to be fulfilled is a QBE incurred on construction or purchase of the building. Number 2, the building was in use or about to use for business. Number 3, the person owned the building at the year end of the basis period. So what about annual allowance AA? Annual allowance AA can be claimed by the company every year as long as the building is active or temporary disused and did not sold or disposed in that year assessment. The condition that to be fulfilled is QBE incurred on construction or purchase of building. Number 2, the building was in as an industrial building for the purpose of business. Number 3, the person owned the building at the year end of the basis period. Annual allowance. Okay, so let's have a look. Okay, so these are the rate of allowance. So there are 3 allowance: initial allowance, annual allowance, and notional allowance. Okay, general rate of allowance for industrial building, whether constructed or purchased, is IA is 10%, annual allowance is 3%, notional allowance same as annual allowance rate. Okay, so this is the general rate. Okay, however, there are some differentiate between factory and others, so you need to read more about this. Okay class, so let's have a look at the definition of temporary disuse. Okay, so what does it mean by temporary disuse? So let's look at the picture. If something happened to the factory, which is the factory cannot be used actively. So if the factory has been used before coming disuse, it is called as temporary disuse. Or during the period of disuse, the company constantly maintained in readiness to be brought back into use. It means the company repaired the factory so they can use it back into business, and the period of disuse is temporary. So if the factory is not actively used for the operation, but the factory has been constantly maintained, so the type of allowance is AA, annual allowance. Okay, so remember, even though that the factory is not actively used, but the company maintain and try to repair the factory so it can be used back in the business, so the company can claim annual allowance. Okay, however, if the company did not maintain the readiness to be brought back into use during the period of disuse, which is the company did not do anything to repair the factory, so that year the company will be deducted notional allowance. However, the notional allowance cannot be claimed as industrial building allowance in tax computation. Okay, notional allowance, the rate is as same as annual allowance. Okay student, so now you already know that there are three allowance under this topic. There are initial allowance, annual allowance and notional allowance. So let's see whether you can differentiate which allowance that should be used in this example. Identify the correct allowance. Okay, Greenish Sdn Bhd commenced its manufacturing operating in 2010. In January 2012, the company constructed a factory at a qualifying expenditure QBE of 3,600,000 ringgit. The factory has been completed the construction on 1st May 2013 and was in use as an industrial building IB until 30th November 2014, after which it was shut down due to fire incident on some part of the building. During the shutdown period, the factory is constantly maintained in readiness to be brought back into use. On 2nd March 2016, the factory was used again. Greenish Sdn Bhd closes its annual account on 31st December every year. Determine the type of allowance up to year assessment 2017. Okay, so this is how you are going to answer this type of question. Okay. Alright. So we are going to taken out all the important dates, all the important event that given in the question. So this is a Greenish Sdn Bhd build a factory who has year ended on every 31st December. Okay. So step 1, you should find the date of completion. So the question have given you the date of completion. Right, the date of completion is here, 1st May 2013. Okay, so second step, you should find any other event that happened in that company. Okay, so step 2, on 30th November 2014, there are a fire incident. Okay. So the factory has been disused. Right. So next, what are the information given to you? Okay. So okay, class. So let's answer the question together. So the question need you to determine type of allowance up to year 2017. So how are we going to answer this question? Alright, so these are the steps that you should follow. Okay. First, you are going to identify the year ended for this company. Okay, the year ended for this company, Greenish Sdn Bhd. Right, all this information must be given in the question. Okay. So next information, you should find the date of completion. Okay, right, the date of completion. Why the date of completion need to be identified? Because when the building has been complete, then that year the company can claim the initial allowance and annual allowance. So the question has given you the date of completion. So next, there are some event happen in the company, which is the fire incident happened on 30th November 2014. Okay. Right. Okay. What happened in 2015? Okay. 2015, the factory is still in disuse. Okay, because the question given information to you on 2nd March 2016, the factory can be used again. So in 2015, the factory is still in disuse. So next information. Okay, so we are going to find out. We are going to put out next information regarding to when the factory can be used back, can be brought back to business on 2nd March 2016. Okay, 2nd March 2016. Let me repair this date. 2nd March 2016. Okay, which is it's including year assessment 2016. Okay, so the question need you to answer until 2017. Okay, alright, so I believe all date has been put out. So it's time to identify what type of allowance that Greenwich neighborhood can claim to India tax computation. Okay, so let's put out and identify all allowance by referring to each year assessment. Okay, we start with year assessment 2013. Okay, we're going to start here 2013. 2013. So that in 2013, the building has been completed, and it is the first year that Greenwich neighborhood can claim for initial allowance. Only for the first year when the factory has been completed. So the rate of allowance is 10%. Right. So in 2013 also, the Greenwich neighborhood can claim for annual allowance. Okay, annual allowance can be claimed every year. Right, can claim every year until the factory has been disposed or has been sold. Okay, so annual allowance 3%. The rate of allowance is 3%. 2013 is completed. Done. So let's move to 2014. Okay, 2014. Okay. What happened in 2014 is the factory has been shut down because the fire incident happened to some part of the building. So the factory cannot be used. However, in the question said the company still maintain, alright? The company still maintain in readiness to be brought back into use, alright? So since the Greenwich neighborhood still maintain the readiness to the factory, then the factory can claim the annual allowance, okay? Not notional allowance, annual allowance, 3%. 2015, okay, 2015 still cannot be used. Okay, so also claim for annual allowance. Okay, remember, if the company maintain in readiness to be brought back, then the company can claim the annual allowance. Okay, alright. So in 2015 also annual allowance for 3%. Alright. So in 2016, okay, the factory has been brought back into business. So the factory is active already and claim for annual allowance. Since the question need you to identify until 2017, so we are going to answer until 2017 here. Okay, also annual allowance at the rate of 3%. Okay. Right, so I hope from this example you can get more clearly view on how to differentiate initial allowance, annual allowance, and notional allowance. So remember, if the company did not maintain in readiness, then from 2014 and 2015, the company will be put in their tax computation as notional allowance. Okay, but since the company maintain in readiness, so the green neighborhood can claim for annual allowance. Okay. Alright, so that's one example of how to differentiate between initial allowance, annual allowance, and notional allowance. Okay, student, this is a summary on part 2. You already learned the type of expenses that can be determined as qualifying building expenditure (QBE). You also have been learned about 75% rules and what is the type of allowance that can be used in industrial building allowance. Okay, so we are going to see you in part 3. See you soon.